Stop.
There have been 35 separate school shootings in America since Newtown. Not a single change to any federal gun law in that time. Nobody on the pro-gun side seems prepared to relent about anything,
no,
even background checks.
Okay, let me answer.
To try and reduce the level of gun violence. Why?
You're absolutely 100% wrong. If you read my gun columns, you'd know this. These are not caused by guns. They are caused by the mentally ill. It was in the 70s. It was right during the deinstitutionalization movement that suddenly you get these spree killings. And by the way, look at them. James Holmes in Aurora, Colorado, Jared Loughner in Arizona, Adam Lanza, the nut at Virginia Tech. They are all obviously paranoid schizophrenics, but we can't lock them up because of the ACLU.
Should the culture try and be changed away from a reliance and dependence on guns, and indeed a glorifying of guns?
No, I mean, obviously, I think guns reduce gun crimes, but the idea that when one spree killing after another is committed by a crazy person, that you think taking the guns away is going to do something. It's like draining an ocean to find a ring you lost. That isn't going to help. The crazy people go out and kill people with swords. You know, the murder of school children during school time that took more lives than any other in this country's history was committed with a bomb by a crazy person.
So your answer to what happened at Newtown would be, unless I'm misreading your logic,
lock up the nuts, yes.
But other than that, what about guns themselves? Nothing.
Start issuing concealed carry permits to people who pass or do not have mental health issues or criminal records.
You would have more guns?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Ralph, let me ask this. Why does I-94 have to be an omnibus? Really, it's an 18-page bill. If we agree on all of these very minor measures, then why not start with the minor measures upon which we agree? Why is it loaded up like a shopping cart with measures with which a lot of people disagree?
What do you think it's loaded up? We're going to get into transfers, right?
Well, yes. I mean, the definition, I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds because we talked about this earlier, but yes, the definition of transfer is incredibly vague in the bill.
So a couple of things about transfers on that. And one, this bill was modeled after Oregon and California, which have had...
Being from California, it's worked beautifully.
Which has had... hundreds of thousands of background checks, and there hasn't been one instance of somebody put in jail for a transfer. Secondly, the key thing on a transfer is that you have to knowingly circumvent the law. In other words, you have to be a black market dealer, or otherwise you're not going to be criminalized for it. That transfer issue is put in there to affect this individual to gun show. So gun shows are private sales. You can sell a couple of guns, but you had black market dealers that were selling 50 AK-47s a session against the law. Those people should have been, by definition, federally licensed firearm dealers. So it's designed at some point to prevent the bad guys from doing it. It's not a gotcha. Nobody wants gotcha for the average everyday citizen put in jail, and it will not happen that way because we have precedent in California and Oregon.
Well, it should be okay. Let me tell you a little bit about the precedent in California for a second. In California, there are 30,000 mentally ill people who have guns. They have a grand total of 33 people, really, in the state of California who are tasked with taking these 30,000 guns away from these 30,000 mentally ill people. Okay, we're creating a system that is either not going to be enforced or it's going to be over-enforced. This idea, if we can just trust the government, then why aren't we just trusting the government to do the right thing now? I don't understand why a piece of legislation makes them better at what they do. I mean, the government is not very good at what they're doing now. Why does new wording make them not suck?
Because part of the reason you have a law or initiative as a deterrent, that government won't even be involved, that the bad guys won't be going to gun shows to buy guns, so they have to circumvent it.
Well, but that's exactly the point. If bad guys are not going to gun shows with regard to Ebola, and for a second, this is a mild digression. With regard to Ebola, the federal government just made the case that they don't want a federal travel ban, right? Because they said if there's a federal travel ban, people will just find a way to circumvent the federal travel ban. Okay, do you see the analogy here?
Yeah, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm here to talk about guns. And most people are law-abiding citizens on that. So, you know, I think one of the reasons you have laws is a deterrent to make sure that people do the right thing.
Well, I agree, but this is the attendant cost. Right? If there are law-abiding, the cost is a law-abiding citizen, for example, under the bill, who wants to loan a gun to a family member for purposes of defending themselves. The bill talks about it has to be in the case only of the most basically emergency situations. Well, how does the government define that? It's undefined in the bill. Right? I mean, so I have a cousin or I have a sister-in-law who feels endangered by her husband. If I give her the gun, and she says, I feel endangered, and she keeps it for a week, but the government only decides that she was endangered for 3 days, and the gun is stolen and used, then she can be prosecuted, I can be prosecuted, as well as the criminal.
And you'll never be prosecuted. It's never happened.
So again, it comes down to faith in government.
You'll never be prosecuted. There's precedent here. You'll never be prosecuted. Use your best judgment and don't knowingly break the law.
Then why don't we just pass a referendum that says, please, prosecutors, do good stuff?
Let me do a follow-up.
All right, the left marches on with its plan to take away your Second Amendment rights, and unfortunately, they are one step closer. Earlier today, the Senate Judiciary Committee passed a controversial ban on assault weapons. Now, not surprisingly, the measure passed along party lines, and the discussion about the ban got very heated at times. Now, it even erupted into a fierce exchange between Texas Senator Ted Cruz and the bill's sponsor, California Senator Dianne Feinstein. Now, watch what happened when Cruz challenged the constitutionality of the ban.
Would she think that the Fourth Amendment's protection against searches and seizures could properly apply only to the following specified individuals and not to the individuals that Congress has deemed outside the protection of the Bill of Rights?
I'm not a sixth grader. Senator, I've been on this committee for 20 years. It's fine you want to lecture me on the Constitution. I appreciate it. Just know I've been here for a long time. I've passed on a number of bills. I've studied the Constitution myself. I am reasonably well educated, and I thank you for the lecture. Incidentally, this does not prohibit, you use the word prohibit, it exempts 2,271 weapons. Isn't that enough for the people in the United States?
Nobody doubts her sincerity or her passion. And yet, at the same time, I would note that she chose not to answer the question that I asked, which is, in her judgment, would it be consistent with the Constitution for Congress to specify which books are permitted and which books are not, and to use the specific number?
The answer is obvious, no.
All right, joining me now is someone who has been very outspoken about the left's gun grab, author, columnist, Coulter. How are you?
Fine.
I don't even need to say Ann. Everybody knows who you are. You know, I felt like I was listening to Cruz. I felt like I was listening to a Supreme Court argument because he's talking about, all right, well, the First Amendment, does that mean that you're going to ban some books, not other books? How do you justify it? The Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. I thought he made a really good case, and she got pissed.
Yeah, he asked some very important questions, and Dianne Feinstein, like her other I am woman, hear me roar, Democratic female, Hillary Clinton, as soon as they get a question they don't like, they start crying. Oh, that's fantastic. I would like to see how that would go over in a law school class when a professor asks you to distinguish cases. I have been very educated, and I'm offended by that question. I spend half my life
near the Constitution.
On college campuses with co-eds at the mic crying to me and stamping their feet and telling me they're offended. It's going to be harder for me to tell them now that's not an answer, now that U.S. senators are using that as an answer. And what Dianne Feinstein eventually got to answering was preposterous. She said he raised the First Amendment. And she said, well, we ban child pornography. The very answer proves the absurdity of what is happening. The First Amendment protects speech. It does not protect photographs. It certainly does not protect photographs of genitals. If we interpreted the Second Amendment, which protects arms, the way we interpreted the First Amendment, you would have a right to your own personal nuclear weapon. That's how extreme it is. And I would add that, in fact, the First Amendment does protect virtual child pornography. It certainly protects writing about child pornography. And for her to say, well, don't worry, we're not banning these other guns. Well, okay, how about we just ban the New York Times, because we still have the Daily News and the New York Post.
Good point. And that's what Cruz was getting to, about the First Amendment side of his argument, which was, I thought, very, very pertinent and clever and appropriate.
He nailed her, so she said, I'm offended.
Yeah, I'm offended. All right. So
I used to think women just shouldn't be able to vote. Now I think at least liberal women should not be able to hold office. And by woman, I do not mean to limit that to the biological sense. That is not an answer. All right. I'm offended.
All right. First of all, you know what frustrates me? Nobody knows about these weapons. I have been trained in the use of firearms since I am 11. I know I've shot most of them. And the point is, You know, Joe Biden is lecturing, well, just fire a shotgun through a door,
Right.
not knowing what's on the other side,
Right.
which is stupid. Secondly, a lot of shotguns have a big kickback that would probably send you flying right on your backside.
Right,
Now, an
no,
AR-15 would not do that.
Right. No, you need different guns for different things. But, I mean, you remind me of this. I keep hearing them say, we deserve to at least have a discussion. We want to have a discussion. Every time you try to have a discussion with them, they become hysterical, they cry, and they want to show pictures of dead children as if our position is, oh, we don't mind a few dead children. No, our position is concealed carry would have stopped these slaughters, and we have the statistics and the studies to back it up. Something else I saw you talking about last night on TV that I think is very important to clarify. This nonsense idea by people who do know absolutely nothing about guns and nothing about criminology that a gun in the home is more likely to be used against the occupant.
True.
Okay, point one, and I have been through some of this before, that is 100% suicides. And there is no higher rate of suicide than with a gun or without a gun. People use poison or a million other things. But the idea that a criminal would be wrestling a gun away from the homeowner is preposterous. That happens even in attempts where the homeowner gets shot by the home invader. It happens in less than 1% of the cases. They have done extensive interviews with prisoners. They say they do not go into homes they think could have a gun. They will not mug someone they think will have a gun. If they see a homeowner with a gun, they run. It is only in Hollywood movies that the criminal sees the gun and wrestles you for it. There are plenty of other houses to break into and rape women in.
All right, you're going to CPAC.
Yes, I am.
All right, we're going to show highlights in a little bit. We got Rubio, you got Rand Paul, you got Ted Cruz, who we just saw, you got Mike Lee. We got a new and of course you are rock star.
Wow.
You're going to bring the house
That's
down.
the big highlights.
That's listen.
So get ready to replay that on Monday.
All right. So, but the point is, we've got an emerging, energetic. We got new blood. I'm energized by them. I think this is really helping the party, and the media hates all of them. Yes. So, I mean, that's a good sign. That means they're doing their job.
Whereas I only hate about a third of them.
Yeah, well,
none of the ones you mentioned. I'm speaking right before Cruz, who is the big finale speaker on Saturday.
Yeah. You get to introduce them?
No, I'm not very good at introductions. I'm much better at making fun of liberals.
Yeah. No. By the way, if you haven't seen Ann speak, you are funny.
Thank you.
Oh, good. You do great.
Well, finally admitted by the media.
Thank you. Thank you both very much.
Explain it to us. Well, I say it, adios, America.
I say adios, America.
Right. What it means is that the nation that has been so welcoming to immigrants, to women, to children, is an amazingly successful nation, and the Democrats do it for the votes. The rich do it for the cheap labor and the cheap maids. They strut around like they're Martin Luther King. No, who is our immigration policy hurting? And this is the post-1965 immigration. We're bringing in millions and millions of people from very poor cultures, from very backwards cultures. No, our social programs are for the American poor. They are for
let me just point out to you that you're
for the
sitting at this
American
table
working
next
class.
to two immigrants, and I don't think either of us qualify as poor maids. But I wanted to ask you, what's your family's immigration story? Are you a Native American?
Why, yes, I am. I'm a settler. I'm descended from settlers, not from immigrants.
Oh, it's not a Native American. But I have a question for you.
It's just an
No, if you mean Indian,
Were you already here when the Pilgrims showed up? Were your people here?
Well, no, but I'm not living in Cherokee Nation, so I am not an immigrant to Cherokee Nation. I'm living in America, which was created by settlers, not immigrants.
I have a question.
But
can I interrupt you for 2 seconds, please?
Yes, the poorest
I have a question. My mom taught me when I was younger, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And why do you think that it's important? Why do you think that's important to mudsling and have these words that obviously touch the hearts and souls of so many people of America being said when we're taught something different as a child? Could you explain that to me? And why do you think your success is based off of that?
Well, I'm at least talking about policy. You have a position on what people's names should be. Watermelondria. I mean, you'll insult people for their names. I'm talking about a government policy that affects all Americans and immigrants and the people living here, and it's harming our country.
So are you?
So you don't follow it.
Are you
I didn't ask
against?
you. Okay.
Are you against all immigration or just illegal immigration?
No, right now, the entire immigration system, the bureaucracy has got to be shut down because it is being used to serve, again, the business elites, the upper classes, the people who get to have all the cheap maids. It's driving down.
Again with the maids.
Well, it's true, though.
But that's not all immigration.
Down. This is what has led to, well, okay, but...
No, but my mother came to this country in the 70s because there was a shortage of medical professionals who could do the job.
That's
and
very unusual,
this year, not really.
No,
There's
yes,
also,
it is.
There's also
No, yes, it is.
Wait
When we have...
Have you been to a hospital lately? There are many doctors from Pakistan, India.
Fabulous. But the point is, okay, but whenever people talk about the immigrants we like your mother, they cite the immigrants that aren't the majority of immigrants coming in. So fine, okay, if they're going to be doctors,
but you know what, Ann,
but when we have a majority of immigrants are on welfare, why would any country bring
Americans are on welfare, period.
No, but why do you bring in people
anymore? They've sent their jobs overseas.
We can't do anything about we can't do anything about criminal Americans, about poor Americans. We don't need to be importing other countries' poor people.
But there's so many other things to talk about besides being an immigrant
who lives
basher.
here?
Man, come on.
Yes, but they
Who
don't
lives here and votes here?
They don't sell them.
This is a very good. So then are you for just rich immigrants coming in, but not poor immigrants coming in?
Well, right now we have 42 million foreign-born in the country now. It's very high. I think we need a little time to assimilate the ones already here, and then set up a system where we get immigrants like your mother, and not look. Most of the wealthy keep saying they want to go.
We all would like to say. Really, we have to go. I'm sorry to cut you off. So I'd just like to say muchas gracias for being here.